I told you you can make a king-size quilt, be 100% accurate, even if you couldn't read a ruler? Now that's putting a ruler aside, not using a ruler to be 100% accurate. Does that sound great to you? Have you ever been able to do anything like that? Okay, let me share with you what you do right now, what I do. First of all, has anybody seen this cutter? This is our marquee product. If you haven't, this cutter is ergonomically designed. You can do up to 32 layers of fabric. Every single layer is perfectly straight from top to bottom. If you have aches and pains, this will allow you not to have them. This will actually, preventive maintenance, the best word I like to use. So you can do 32 layers, 3 to 5 years out of a single blade. That has to do with the blade. We'll touch on the blade later if we get to it, okay? Now, talking about our quilt blocks. There's several different ways that you'll do a quilt. You can do quilt blocks, you can do half square triangles, you can do circles, you can do double wedding rings. And I'm going to show you with this system how you can do every quilt on underneath the sun, unless it's a custom quilt, be 100% accurate without measuring. Now, give me one word, ladies and gentlemen, give me one word that is most important to this industry. Now, granted, I've heard fun, therapeutic, I've heard it all. But what is the most important word in this industry?
Accuracy.
Accuracy. So we all strive for accuracy, we fall short. Let me show you what you guys do, and let me show you what I do, and let me show you how I can help you with your accuracy, okay? Now, first things first. Has anybody here ever heard somebody say, oh, a laser machine cut that, or that was cut by laser? Have you ever heard that term? Do you know why people use lasers to cut things? Lasers are known for accuracy. Every single product that I have in this industry that we make by Martelli is cut on a laser machine or CNC machine. So what does that tell you right off the bat?
Accurate.
We're working with accurate products right off the bat. Now, if you look at this on all my products, you're going to see 0.5. That's very important. The 0.5 is for the seam allowance, okay? So when we're doing a quilt block, for example, let's say we're doing a 7.5. This is what you do. You take a ruler, you measure cut, you move the ruler, measure cut, move the ruler, measure cut, move the ruler, measure cut. Then you get 6 more layers. And you do this over and over and over again, 6 layers at a time. Every time you take a measurement, you cut and move that ruler. Is that ruler a constant or a variable? Now, who here has ever heard, whatever you do, make sure you use your rulers because your rulers are more accurate? And we've all heard that, right? I'm about to disprove that to you right now as we speak. We've just discussed this is a variable. Now, this was cut on a laser machine. Is this a constant or a variable? Constant. This will never change. So now, I want you to picture yourself at home. What you do is you measure cut, measure cut, measure cut, 6 layers at a time, right? So now I cut, I turn, I cut, I turn, I cut, I turn, I cut, and then I'm done. Now here's my question to you, okay? This right here, this is a constant and a variable. This will never change, right? So my question to you is, does it matter if I do 1 layer, 5 layers, 7 layers, or 1,000 layers? Is it ever going to be any different? Now let's touch back what we did a minute ago. If you're using your ruler as you're taught and you're doing 6 layers at a time, how many sets of 6 layers are you going to have when it's all said and done? Several. Now, you're going to take 6 layers at a time, measure cut, measure cut, measure cut. You're going to have all these 6 layers. Say you're doing a king-size quilt. Approximately how many sets of 6 layers are you going to have? Tons. Now you're going to do your half-square triangles. This is what you ladies do. You take a ruler, you measure cut, measure cut, measure cut, measure cut, 6 layers at a time. Let me show you how I do my half-square triangles. But before I do that, I'm going to take this top layer off because I want to show you how to do circles in a minute. Now, notice there's a grid system on my mat. You see all those little tiny boxes? I'm going to come right now, I'm going to take my 2 points of my squares that I know are already accurate, and I'm going to put my points on my 45. Can everybody see that? Then I'm going to take my ruler, and I'm going to set my ruler down just like this on that line. Now, the great thing about my products, and we just touched on earlier, and one of the great things is when you bump your ruler, what happens to your material underneath at home? It stays there, and you have to start the process all over again. Watch how important this no-slip material is. When I take my ruler and I bump it or I move it, what happened to my product, or my fabric? It stays with the ruler, right? So now I'm going to take this, put this in the proper cutting position, and now I'm going to cut it from point to point. Now, let me touch on this really quickly, ladies. You remember how they tell you, whatever you do, make sure you use your rulers to measure with and don't use your mats. One of the reasons why they tell you this and they don't know this is because when you lift your ruler up, what happens to your fabric underneath? Are you going to stop and try to readjust the fabric exactly where it was? Of course not. So one of the advantages to my rulers is this. I can pin from right here, and I lift from right here. See this right here? This is rulers made out of PVC. The advantage of having a PVC ruler is it's flexible. Now, when you lift your ruler up, when you have a solid piece of acrylic, it creates a vacuum. So when you lift it up, that vacuum takes the fabric and it shifts it. By having a flexible PVC ruler, you can pinch one side and lift the other side. It breaks the vacuum. By breaking the vacuum, it allows you to use your mat to measure with. That's why we can use our mat. Now, I've heard this before too, but yeah, our mats are inaccurate. Even if your mat is inaccurate, let's go back one step further we talked about a minute ago. Is your mat a constant or a variable? It's a constant. It will never change. We've already discussed you using your ruler is an absolute nightmare. That's what you're taught. Don't hold it against yourself. I'm just teaching you an easier, faster, more efficient way of being 100% accurate. Okay, now back to our quilt blocks. So now we're going to take this right here and we're going to sew it to this right here. When we're done, we're going to get our dog ears. Okay? Now let me share with you what you do. You take 6 layers at a time. You measure cut, measure cut, measure cut, measure cut. You do this over and over again. Then you take them and you cut them from point to point, then you sew them together. And then you start that same inaccurate process all over again to square them up. You take them, you sew them together, you take your ruler, you measure, cut, measure, cut, measure, cut, measure, cut. Next, measure, cut, measure, cut. Let me show you how I do it. Now, I already know that these four sides are square. How do I know that? I used a template that